Hello, and we are back in the kitchen today. I have quite a lot of food prep things to do. I have produce that needs using up today and just an overabundance of some stuff. I have a cat clawing to come in the door as well. I have a lot of tomatoes to use and mushrooms and things like that. I'm also planning on making some pickled cucumbers as well, with the last of the cucumbers from the greenhouse, and making some food for tea, or for tea for later, and also for future, either tomorrow or the following day, or within the next couple of days anyway. And I also have pudding to make because I fetched in quite a lot of windfall apples this morning too. The wind got up pretty strong last night, so we have quite a few windfall apples. So I'm thinking maybe apple crumble. Yeah, maybe apple crumble rather than apple pie. But I may change my mind because I am planning on making a mushroom and eel pie. So I may just make two batches of, like a double batch of pastry. I'm not sure. I'll see how I feel. So the pickles recipe I'm planning on using is from the old Good Housekeeping cookery book. Mine was printed in the early 80s, I think. I think my mum's was in the 70s, but it's still a really good kind of... I still refer to it all the time. It's a really good basic cookery book with pretty much anything you could want if you don't want to cook something really modern, if that makes sense. And it doesn't have a lot of what I would consider like American style food. It's very much more like British style foods. But yeah, the recipe is in here. Where is it? Cucumbers. The recipe is for the bread and butter pickles. I will probably do half quantity because I don't have that much cucumbers to use up, but I have made this before and it is really nice, and I will likely just be using pickling spice rather than the celery seed and mustard seed because that's what I have in my cupboard. And for dinner I was planning on this recipe for mushroom and eel pie. I have made it before. I have some Orkney Reserve dark ale. I have a small amount that needs using up, so I'm going to use this, and I will likely be making my own pastry. I do have some puff pastry in the freezer, but I don't really want to open a whole packet just for a pastry top, because this is just like a pot pie with a pastry lid. It's not it hasn't got a pastry base, like a pie dish base. So I'm going to be making that. And some roast mixed Mediterranean vegetables. And maybe some pasta pizza sauce. I'm not sure yet. We'll just see. I'm going to save the cucumber seeds as well, and I will pop them on some kitchen roll and I will save them to grow next year. So I've got my cucumber and onions soaking in their salt bath. You can see they've released quite a lot of water already. The salt helps draw out the excess moisture from the cucumbers and the onions, but mostly it's because of the cucumbers. And they'll be drained and rinsed and drained again before they are ready for their pickling vinegar. I've also got my veggies ready for roasting. I will need at least one more tray to dish these into because there's way too much in this tray. But I've got some nice big pieces of garlic in here. Some of my cloves, well, most of the cloves are really big, so I have cut them into big chunks. And I'll just add some olive oil, salt and pepper, maybe herbs, haven't decided yet, and just roast them up. Although with all this garlic, they might have to be roasted after I've cooked the crumble, because it may be a funny tasting apple crumble otherwise. And I think I'm going to nip off and get some lunch and then come back and do some more. Okay, I think I'm going to make the crumble topping for the apples next. And it can just sit to one side until later. I don't want to prep the apples yet because they will go really brown. I mean, they tend to go brown anyway, the amount of time it takes me to peel and chop enough apples for a crumble. But it doesn't really make a difference to the flavour of the crumble at all. It's just as it oxidises. And I think this time I'm going to add some chopped hazelnuts in the crumble topping. Last time I made one, it was a plain crumble. I like to vary it up a bit, so some hazelnuts, and maybe I'll use demerara sugar in the crumble topping instead of granulated sugar. Give it a kind of a caramelly flavour too. So I think that's next. So now that I've got my crumble topping ready for later, I'm going to work on the sauce, pizza, pasta sauce, whatever you want to use it for. Basically, it'll be pretty much the same as I made the other day, except I'm going to add some red pepper this time. I haven't yet decided if I'm adding carrot like I did last time. It just depends how I feel. But I want to get that on now because it needs to reduce down, so it can be bubbling away on the stove whilst I'm making the pie filling and the pastry for the pie. And I can't remember what else I need to do. So the thing is making a lot of noise at the moment because I'm sauteing, but the sauce is pretty much done. So I'll just let that cool, and then I can put some in the fridge for in the week and put the rest in the freezer, just like I did the other day. And I've got my veggies for the mushroom and ale pie, just sauteing away. Got onion, garlic and celery, and I've just added the mushrooms a minute ago. So they've just got to cook down a little bit. And then need to make the sauce in here, which is just adding flour, cooking out the flour, and then adding dark ale to make a sort of gravy, and I think it's got mustard in. I think the recipe says Dijon, but I don't use Dijon because we don't like it, so I will be putting in whole grain mustard instead. Okay, I've got my little amount of pastry made up, enough for the tea tonight, because I'm only doing a small pie. It'll mostly be filling and just a bit of pastry on the top. And I'm going to be adding some flour and also some Orkney Brewery Dark Island Reserve. There's a small amount of this left that I just never got around to finish drinking, so that's going in the pie. And then I want to get the pie and the crumble in the oven quite soon because it's getting on and I want them ready to have dinner at a reasonable time. So those will be priority, and then the roast vegetables will go in once the crumble's about done.